Hey, good evening, everyone. I am Austin from Life, Love, and the Pursuit of Fi.
And I'm Greg.
And today we have special guest, Scott. Scott, how are you doing today?
Doing great, guys. How are you?
Fantastic. Thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, my pleasure. Always.
So, let's begin with, Fi, right? Like, we all know Fi. We all know what Fi is. How did you find Fi?
So, growing up, I've had a job, a gig of some sort, pretty much ever since I was 15. I'm 33 now, and those first jobs were, whatever would hire a 15-year-old to get some pocket money. I never worked in food service, but I grew up in Utah, and Utah has a lot of, or at least did at the time, had a lot of call centers. So I ended up doing incoming calls, outgoing calls, sales calls, support calls, all sorts of stuff. So you get to develop your customer service. You get to talk to all walks of life, and most of them don't want to be talking to you. I'm going to be quite honest. So I developed a relationship with work in general that was a little bit pessimistic from an early age. It came in the form of, this is something I do to be able to pursue the things that I love and want to do. And so when I went to school, I ended up getting a degree in something I'm passionate about, film production. And meanwhile, I needed a laptop upgrades that I could not afford. I needed to optimize a computer in a way that could deliver the performance while I'm doing edits and I'm doing effects and things like that. And I needed to be frugal. So it all started with frugality, being able to buy the tools that you need to pursue your passions. And then it became, oh, wait, if you can optimize a computer to do things, that means you at least understood a little bit what a computer's about. So I ended up getting a job in IT. And basically I've been on that track ever since. Got a job at 17 years old, moved on from there, worked at my university until a couple years after I graduated. Worked in the film industry. Long story short, I developed a set of skills early on that meant that I was more and more exchanging what I know for money. And what I realized was that I'm pretty good at researching. If I have a need, I can figure out how to get that thing for the most part, and or attain goals. And eventually I started asking the question of, like, I see people that are, influencers or have blogs at the time. This is around like 2011, 2012. And they're making a full living doing what they love. And I decided to look into kind of what would be kind of proto influencers, and realizing quickly that might not be for me. It seemed like eventually you were kind of like monetizing what you love. So I started looking at, how do you retire early? And this was about 2012, 2013, a peak Mr. Money Mustache. I found a subreddit, and at the time, a small section of Reddit, and at the time it only had like, I would say 20,000 users or something like that. It's now 1.5 million today. FI's grown quite a bit, but I didn't know anything about investing. I didn't know anything about how to solve this particular problem. And people like Mr. Money Mustache, the Mad Scientist, people like that ended up leaving great breadcrumbs for building kind of like a foundation for early retirement. And I remember like the main article on Mr. Money Mustache's website was the shockingly simple math behind early retirement. So at the time I was married, and I talked to my spouse about this, about how if we just optimize for a little bit, we can do what we want to do, which was travel. And what ended up being the case was that saving an entire decent salary in California one an IT salary and one school administrator. And next thing we knew, we were, our portfolio ended up growing by, I want to say, more than a person's salary every year, plus gains. And that was really transformative because it felt like after you graduate from college, I don't know if you guys identify with this. You graduate from college, and this whole time, your entire life career, ever since you were 5 years old, you knew what you were doing the next year, and it was a new grade. Like you were you're going to be working on first grade, and then sixth grade, and then high school, and all these things. And once you get through your college degree, it's pretty much like it's what you make of it. Whether that's going into what you got a degree in, or deciding to take a gap year, or deciding to start a business, or what have you. And FI kind of became the new, structure that I could base my life around. And initially, that structure was really strict, very regimented. It's loosened up over time.
Okay. Wow, that's fantastic.
That was a very long answer to that question. I think that was.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of history there, right?
Yeah.
Would you change any part of it if you could?
There's always kind of stuff attached to, life circumstance, life's twists and turns. But in all honesty, I probably would have, not much. I wish I had started sooner. I got started with FI around like 24. Because I was intimidated by, investing, things like that. I even delayed like 3 or 4 months putting money into my 401k when I had it as an option, because I was like, I don't know. Is anyone from my generation actually going to retire? Like, what's the point of this? I graduated into the economic crisis in 2008. So that you get a little bit cynical.
Yeah.
But one thing that, kind of lit a fire, pardon the pun, for me was just realizing that you can unlock with a little bit of discipline, you can unlock a lot of joy in life by virtue of kind of removing money. But yeah, it's really fascinating to think about like all the twists and turns that life has brought to you. And to answer your question, I don't think I could change anything and not be giving up some major part of where I am today.
Okay.
Now, given that, are you still working, or are you currently retired?
I'm still working. So recently, I left a job that I've been at for 10 years. Consistently, I've been doing side gigs and things like that, but I had this baseline of this gig at in education as a IT administrator, and that was fantastic. It was a lovely place to spend that time, but at a certain point, you got to realize you got to grow. Right now, I'm running a consultancy and working for a consultancy as well.
Nice. For those who are younger who might be listening, or for those who are just now finding FI, what resources would you recommend to kind of help people get on their way?
So here's the thing is that I've had people ask me, and I'm sure you guys identify with this, peers that have been like, I don't know anything about money. Austin, you seem to know a lot about money. Greg, you seem to know a lot about money. What do we do next? What are some easy steps? And you always kind of have to ask, what are your goals? If your goal is to buy a house, that's a different goal than, saving for early retirement possibly, or what have you. I like showing someone who asks that question the 3x5 note card. If you guys are familiar.
I think I've seen it before. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's a financial analyst that basically wrote down on a 3x5 note card, it's like 7 bullet points, and it basically is, the bucket method for FI. It includes, a little bit of social justice in terms of supporting social safety nets. It includes a lot on a 3x5 note card. And if they can't handle the note card, then maybe they're not ready for the next stuff. But I tend to send them a picture of that and go like, do this. It suggests index funds. It suggests also, in fact, I'll bring it up 1 second. 9 simple money rules all on one index card. Should I list them off?
Absolutely.
Yeah, go for it.
Max your 401k or equivalent employee contribution. Next, buy inexpensive, well-diversified mutual funds or index funds, such as the Vanguard Target 20X funds. Never buy or sell an individual stock or security. The person on the other side of the table knows so much more about this stuff than you do. They recommend save 20% of your money. That's usually a lot more palatable than just saying I save half of what I make. A lot of people, their eyes bug out when I say that. Gotta ease them into that one. Pay your credit card balance in full every month. Maximize tax advantage savings by using a Roth, SEP, 529 accounts. If you don't know what those are, they're relatively easy to Google. Pay attention to fees and avoid actively managed funds. Get a financial advisor who's a fiduciary, meaning they have a mandate to be serving your best interest when they work with you, not sell you something. Promote social insurance programs to help people when things go wrong. And that's it. It all fits on a 3x5 note card. And it says so much. There will be some Googling. Obviously, there's some keywords in there. But honestly, I've had multiple friends turn their financial life around by virtue of just, saving that 20% off the top.
Well, yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think that the knowledge is there, but you have to be willing to go find it. You have to be willing to put in the work to actually want to change your life.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to get into, your personal journey. How has living in a high cost of living area, if you ever have, affected that journey?
So I do live in a very high cost of living area. I live in Los Angeles, and I have my entire FI journey. And there are ways to mitigate and take advantage of a very high cost of living area in order to maximize your savings, maximize your happiness as well, because it's really easy to make yourself miserable in an area like this. Because you can make a lot of justifications for buying or renting in a bad chunk of town that will affect you in your daily life. One thing that I appreciate about living in an area like this is that there's a good version of any food, or there's a great way to get any ingredients you might have, and there's little enclaves of different cultures. You can have Koreatown, or you can have Filipino town, things like that. And they'll all have kind of not only their own prepared cuisine in the form of restaurants, but they'll also have great little markets that are designed for that culture specifically. And usually the price is a lot lower than you find anywhere else. And so I'd say shop frugal. We have access to Aldi here. Aldi's fantastic for being able to keep a budget really well. As far as living situation goes, which is usually the main expense for people here, honestly, I'd say don't be afraid of having a roommate. Even if you're further along in life than you might think, a roommate makes a huge difference if you find the right person that fits in your lifestyle, because that person not only is contributing to the chores or contributing to, watching pets or plants. They're also someone you can rely on if you lock yourself out of the house or things like that. And in addition to that, they're effectively probably going to contribute what amounts to a part-time job for most people to your rent, rather. And so even if you have a person that is a challenge, which my roommate is a delight. Even if you have someone that's challenging, you can ask yourself, how much stress did I spend on this month? Was it 1 hour? Well, look at the hourly rate versus what you look at the stress versus the contribution and the value added. So that's something I've taken advantage of. California is kind of interesting in that it's very car based, especially the LA area. And one thing that can increase stress a lot is being stuck in traffic. And I've been, this is not for everyone. Again, I've been an avid motorcyclist my entire life. And so in California, you can, one, it's a 70 mile per gallon vehicle. And for two, you can actually kind of, legally ride through traffic and get to where you need to go in a reasonable amount of time without wasting a bunch of gas, time, stress. But again, that's not for everyone. You have to find what fits you.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've been a motorcyclist your entire life. What kind of sparked that interest in motorcycles?
Terminator 2.
Okay.
I remember seeing the LA River scene with Arnold Schwarzenegger and the T-1000 and young John Connor and like just seeing that Harley like do that jump into the LA River. I was just like, I want one. At one point, Arnold does a he like spins a shotgun with one hand in order to reload it to like cock it. I'm just like, that is the coolest thing I have ever seen. But yeah, it was honestly, it was a little bit of like teenage rebellion. My parents kept saying, like, you can get a motorcycle when you're out of the house, and that probably expedited me getting out of the house a little bit.
Okay. Have you taken any adventures on your motorcycle that you want to speak to?
I have. This was I've been working with my gig for a long time. I have a great relationship with my boss. And at a certain point, about I want to say a year ago now, I told him, hey, a little bit burnt out at work. I know when the stressful parts of the year are as far as the tasks associated with my job. And I would like to take January to March off. You don't have to pay me. Just assure me that I'll have a job at the end and I'll prep whatever you need. And they went for it. They actually said yes. So this was still pandemic lockdown. And I had booked a trip to Morocco and doing dual sport riding across the Moroccan desert. And I booked this and I was so stoked, and literally 24 hours later, Morocco closed their borders to all, like any traffic, even from Spain. And I went, oh, well, okay, I better get a refund on that. And then when I did, I went, what place doesn't close? What place can I ride my bike to that will never close and I can get a little bit of adventure in? And since I'm in LA, Mexico seemed like the best option. So there's a bunch of resources for people that are doing motorcycle road trips. There's a website called Horizons Unlimited that'll talk about insurance and what to bring and, how to get over like I'll do it later. The trepidation of kind of getting on the road and putting yourself out there in that way. So I use that as a resource, talk to people that do long distance international motorcycle trips. And then I hit up a website called Bunka Biker. That's kind of like people can post, hey, I'll you can put up a tent in my backyard, or I can offer you a shower or what have you. for free, and it's all about goodwill. So I booked a few bunker bikers and I started south. Stayed with some fantastic people and found a route online to because I was so scared, because Mexico, you think Mexico, equals danger. That's what you see on the news. But for the most part, I didn't see that many people. Honestly, I was off road the whole time. I found a route that was posted online called the Baja Discovery Route, and it kind of gave you each day, a waypoint, and you put it into your GPS, and you have a hard route and an easy route. And I started out with the hard routes and never did anything else because I'm into off-road motorcycling at this point.
Nice. So what part of Mexico did you ultimately end up in?
So I went down the entire peninsula of Baja over the course of 2 months. And what that looked like was, me, motorcycle, riding jeans, some riding boots, stuff like that, and a bit of motocross gear, and a bag, kind of a dry bag strapped to the back of the bike. I don't have hard bags. They look like aluminum boxes. I use the soft bags. And maybe I can send you guys some photos or something that you posted in the notes. But one thing that was fantastic was just being, pick a route, any number of routes, and if you don't make it that day, it's okay. I already had camping gear that was set up for long distance backpacking, so it was very light. And if you don't make it to your destination by dark, you just find an off the road way, like a little spot under a tree or something like that. Or in my case, it was private beaches more often than not, completely deserted beaches. Set up your tent and park the bike and just sleep under the stars, because the climate was beautiful in February and January down there. But yeah, it was really wonderful, getting to challenge yourself and also just not really having a plan, and also really getting to see some out of the way spots of Mexico and meet people that aren't used to the tourists, and so they're not thinking, oh, another gringo. They're thinking, oh, why are you here? Why are you here? Inspiring that question means that you're doing it right, in my opinion.
So, speaking of, how is your Spanish?
Awful. No, I use Google Translate. There's a Google Translate has a wonderful offline mode, where you can just put in text and it'll get a pretty good approximation. You can't talk into it, but you can definitely enter in text, and that makes a huge difference.
Mi español es no bueno.
No.
Amigo, no bueno.
Yeah, I couldn't even get that out, honestly. And I was told my accent was atrocious when I tried, so that's not.
Oh man, I travel to Mexico a lot, and definitely I have some friends who live there, so it's just trying
And your Spanish is still awful.
I know. I honestly do Scott's method sometimes. I use Google Translate whenever I need help. I'm like, Google's got me back.
Hey, gotta get on that Duolingo.
Everyone knows that Austin's fourth language is Spanish. His first language is dance, and his second language is lovemaking.
The third sarcasm.
English is somewhere in there.
Yeah, it's not that high on the list. Oh man, so you're still currently in Los Angeles, right?
Yeah, I'm in LA. I'm gonna be taking off on a plane in a little bit. I had my last day at the school yesterday, and I'll be doing remote work from now on.
Nice. So what does that look like for you? Where are you going?
Tax arbitrage.
Okay, nice.
So I'm working with a company that's based out of California, but as long as you're so the way the taxation works is it depends on where you physically are. because there's a rule for some states called the convenience rule. I think New York, Delaware, Connecticut, commuter states, where you might work in New York, but you live in Connecticut, for instance. They have reciprocity on their taxes, but California, thankfully, does not have that. So you can make a California salary and then take that to a very low cost of living area, like, for instance, Tennessee, which is kind of my destination at the moment.
Awesome. That's fantastic.
More bike trips down to Mexico?
Oh, 100%. Anytime I can. One of the nice things about Mexico, it's in the same time zones as the U.S. You're basically, on the same time schedule as working remote, and if you do it right, you can go on your adventures on the weekend and be in a hotel during the middle of the week.
Yeah, unfortunately, I now work in an office. I've actually recently switched jobs. So we'll have to, link up on the weekend and go riding together sometime.
100%.
Yeah. I'll either have to come to Tennessee or you'll have to come to Charlotte. If you come to Charlotte, I can offer free housing.
Ooh.
So, yeah. But we can take that offline later. So,
yeah. We'll negotiate.
Tennessee.
We'll
Don't worry. We'll come up with something.
Yeah.
Tennessee. So you've driven through Mexico, ridden your motorcycle through Mexico. Have you taken your motorcycle through Canada?
I've never been to Canada yet. I've been to 38 countries. I've never been to Canada. I've been to all of Central America, most of Western Europe on a motorcycle, in fact, and never once made it to Canada. So that's a big one. I'd love to do the ride to Alaska at some point.
Okay, nice. So from here, would you say that you're pursuing more Coast-Fi, regular Fi, or like Fat Fi? Or?
So I am at Coast-Fi. I could kind of do a barista FI, but honestly, the markets are down, and I decided this is the moment. This is the moment to push on salary, push on side gigs, bump the primary income as much as possible, because frankly, downturns like this it's easy to forget, oh, I wish the market would take a dump. And then the market takes a dump and everyone freaks out and doesn't feel like participating. This is an opportunity, in all honesty, because the world economy, it's stumbling right now, but it's no less overall productive or the fundamentals haven't really changed that much. And so when you think about, oh, I wish I'd gotten into Tesla, or I wish I'd gotten into the S&P 500 when it was, half as much 5 years ago. All of that is available to you right now. It just, you just have to have kind of conviction that the market will recover. And I believe wholeheartedly that there might be a dip from here, but it's the fundamentals are still good.
Okay, nice. So when you let me rephrase that. When you decide to kind of Coast-Fi or fire regular, what is your post-fire retirement looking like?
So that's a little bit contingent on if I'm partnered at the time, if I'm deciding to go solo for a bit. It really depends on what life looks like at that point, because I'm never going to make decisions without taking into account my significant other. But for right now, I bought a property in Tennessee. That's one of the reasons that I'm prioritizing getting out there. I bought 5-6 acres in a nice gated community for less than a nice sedan in 2017, and have been kind of watching my trees grow for the last little bit on visits. And I'd love to put a house there. I'm a little bit nervous with some of the political stuff that's going on with the Supreme Court at the moment, not to get political, but yeah, it's been my dream to have a nice secluded spot that's where I can be, energy independent, have a nice internet connection, live amongst the trees, and but still be within 20 minutes of decent sushi. So
Nice.
so yeah, that's kind of the dream right now. That might change depending on how politics go, but and another thing that I'm working on right now is I found out a while ago that I was eligible for Italian citizenship through it's called Jure Sanguinis. It's citizenship by blood. Italy has a really liberal policy toward that, where if you can prove that you have an ancestor after 1861, when Italy formed as a country, who basically is an ancestor that continued the citizenship down the line, you are by right of birth a citizen of Italy, and therefore the EU, which is very useful. The EU, as we know, has great social programs. You get access to healthcare. You get access to your heritage and being able to stay for longer than 6 months in the Schengen zone, which is their kind of immigration zone to kind of standardize visas. So one thing I'm excited about is to get an EU passport and hopefully be able to either be based out of there or travel extensively within the EU.
That's fantastic.
Yeah,
That would be amazing.
I hope we get that opportunity.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, it's worth, if you have any inkling that you have a relative who was an Italian citizen when they had kids in whatever country you're in, it's very possible that you might have Italian citizenship from a distant relative that you didn't even know about. I did the little... Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I did the little genetic test, honestly, the like 23andMe or something like that. My family got them all for Christmas. And it turned out I was like 4% Italian or something like that. But I qualify for this, so I'm still going for it.
Hey, if you can get it.
This is called an Italian citizenship.
Yes. 100%.
That's awesome. I'm excited for you.
Yeah. Appreciate it.
Yeah. So your investing path, is it the regular VTSAX and chill, or is it a different approach?
It's VTSAX and chill. It's honestly that's kind of my baseline. That's just throw money at it and forget about it. But when I have extra cash, or if I'm in a Roth where I expect big gains on something like that, I am very bullish on a certain famous EV maker. I've been paying attention to them for quite a few years. I've owned one of their cars. I like it quite a bit, and so that's probably the only.
It's the Chevy, right?
Yeah, it's the Chevy. It's the Chevy. Yeah. Oh yeah, I want a Ford Lightning so bad. No cap. They're really fantastic. They look really cool. But yeah, I was once interested in joining a few in like becoming a worker at, for instance, like SpaceX or something like that, because I think there's a future in this company, and also they're privately held and might go public at some point. That might be worth a lot. But yeah, for the most part, I'm pretty boring with my investments, and honestly, I kind of just appreciate getting what the S&P 500 has to offer, and it feels kind of good to also invest in something where every worker for these large companies, every executive, everyone's kind of like rowing in your direction, and you're getting the kind of average of that, and that feels like a good investment strategy if you don't feel like being too active.
Yeah, I agree. From all your travels, what would you say is like one of your most memorable trips?
Oh goodness, I spent 3 weeks with my ex riding across Western Europe, motorcycle road trip, 13 countries. It was amazing. Staying in wouldn't be B&B. It's called an agriturismo in Italy. It's basically like a winery that also, acts as a bed and breakfast. Italy was just wonderful. This recent trip into Mexico was fantastic. I met nothing but lovely people. Ended up only spending about $800 across 2 months because people would invite me into their homes after a polite conversation.
Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. People ask me if there was a scary moment south of the border, and the only one I could think of was I had been riding down the coast on a beach north of La Paz, and sun was going down. It was beautiful. It was like this horse had been riding like alongside me and stuff like that. It was the most picturesque thing in the world. You couldn't make it up. But the sun was going down, and I don't ride at night. So I set up camp next to a beached tugboat, just a random, like perfectly formed tugboat that was just beached on the beach. It was like something out of a movie, and it's a bright full moon shining right above it, and I just had a moment of like, this is the best thing. This is the best thing until 3 a.m. 3 a.m. I'm kind of visible from the road for once. 3 a.m. Nothing but moonlight. There's a black, really nice truck that comes up on the road and stops right next to my campsite. It's all blacked out. It's got tinted windows and everything. I'm going like, oh Lord, he coming.
Scott's not returning from Mexico now.
Yeah, I was like, oh no. Big guy gets out, pulls out his phone, takes a photo of the tugboat, looks over at me, double take, looks over at me, sees the bike. He goes, hey man, you awake? And I go like, yeah, how can I help you, sir? And he's like, you ride this here? And I'm like, yeah. I rode that bike all the way from Los Angeles. He's like, you're a badass. Sorry, I don't know if we were supposed to swear now. Goes in the truck, grabs me a beer, and we like share a beer on this beach. He's speaking broken English. I'm speaking broken Spanish. His name's Joe. We had this like conversation. He like talks about all these bikes he used to ride. He goes like, enjoy your ride, and he just takes off. And like, I get back to my tent, and all I can say over and over again is, I love Mexico. I love Mexico. This is dope. That was
fantastic.
That was the scariest thing that could have gone way off the rails, and it ended up being really cool, like as cool as you could ever imagine. So I felt that really hard.
Heck yeah, that's an awesome story.
That is awesome.
Man, now I want to be remote and take 2 months off in Mexico.
It's fantastic. Everything was reasonably priced. Everyone was kind. The border's a little bit stressful. Just a lot of, everyone's got kind of a grift closer to the border because there's a lot of like economic disparity between the two populations. But once you get a little bit further south, there's coastal towns that just don't see that much tourist action, and they're happy to have you.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I don't know if you've ever been to Mexico, Greg. The people are just friendly, right? Food's great, great atmosphere.
Oh yeah, I've been once. I loved it. Can't wait to go back.
Yeah, after that experience, I started seriously considering, hey, a house in Mexico doesn't sound that bad, honestly.
Yeah, that's my post-FI plan.
That sounds amazing.
Scott, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you so much.
No problem.
And yeah, this has been another episode of Life, Love, or the Pursuit of Fi, with many more episodes to come with your host, Austin Culp.
And Greg Gaskin.
And our special guest, Scott.
Thanks,
the man, the myth, the legend.